Then there's some tattoo artists today will say, well, I'm booked up for 3 weeks. I said, no, you're not booked up for 3 weeks, buddy. They own your ass for 3 weeks. So I never would work by private appointment. How do you get a tattoo by you? I said, you know, there's a sign on the door with the hours. I'd recommend they're getting there early, but I'm not making an appointment with you because nobody's owning my ass. I'm a product of timing, 100%, I feel. I didn't get there for my great artistic talents. I mean, Janice did more for tattooing than anything else. I mean, in concerts with thousands of people at a stadium, she would hold up her tattoo and tell the crowd that anybody got tattooed like to fuck a lot. Well, Madison Avenue could not write better copy than that. Because all the goddamn retardos, which I'm talking about the human race, the great unwashed out there, said, oh man, I like to fuck a lot, so I need a tattoo.
I was enamored with Janice Joplin, and I knew that she had a little red heart on her chest. So Michael was like, okay, you know, I want a tattoo. What do you want? What do you want? And I said, well, give me a little red heart on my ankle.
One of the pivoting events in there was when Janice Joplin, who was adored by the young people and the hip crowd, got tattooed. Lyle Tuttle did it. With that, Lyle became famous.
Well, every time I'm credited with helping popularize it, I sort of feel ashamed of myself. And I'm saying that not in jest, but in a way of really ruining a outsider art to make it an inside art. I found it a lot more charming years ago.
I remember he bought me and Bill Eason lunch in Puerto Rico, and we almost had a fucking heart attack because he ain't bought nobody shit. You know, if anybody knows Lyle, he doesn't really spend a lot of money. Well, not his own. He spends everybody else's. But he bought us lunch, and we're like, dude, ain't nobody here to fucking know you bought us lunch because they ain't gonna believe us. So we love you, Lyle. When I was around 18 or 19, I tried to get a job with Dennis Dwyer, and he told me just to get the fuck out of his shop. And I was like, okay, cool, you know. And then like 20 years later, he's like, why didn't you ever come in for a job? I'm like, Dennis, I did, and you told me to get the fuck out of your shop, you know?
It was very secretive in the old days, and people didn't want to tell you anything. Some people you worked for, even when you needed supplies or whatever, they would get it for you. They wouldn't give you the address of the supplier because they feared that, you know, if you got this knowledge, then you'd get your own stuff, and then you'd open up down the street. And of course, little did they know, you know, how it is these days. I mean, it's almost like there's a tattoo shop on every corner, and it was never supposed to be like that.
I mean, I remember early on, I couldn't find somebody to rent a spot for me, you know. And now you go to the mall, the big shopping mall, you know, and there's a tattoo shop there. There's one in Albuquerque right at the shopping mall, and you know, it blows my mind. I go to little towns. It used to be that you needed, you know, at least several 100,000 people in a town to support one tattoo shop. I go to places now that the population can't be 1,000 people, and they got a damn tattoo shop. You know, sometimes I get sick of seeing them. You know, it's like, oh God, not here too. You know.
In the old days, we tried to make tattooing more respectable, more acceptable, but it got way out of hand, and now it's just too acceptable, and I don't know about respectable, but you know, it's become, you know, way too popular, and it was more like an, I don't know, underground thing almost back in the day, an outlaw thing, a blue collar thing. You know, it was, you know, it's lost a lot of its charm.
Now that it's big, and you have high production studios owned by people that wouldn't even get a tattoo, I think a I'll be honest with you, I think that's going to eventually die. And these people, Brian Everett, Jack Rudy, they'll be fine. But I think the industry is going to kind of die like disco a little bit, in my opinion. But the ones who really are craftsmen and artisans who really pushed, they'll be fine.
I grew up on a very poor farm in Salt Lake City, Utah. We didn't have running water or anything like that until I was 11 years old. And my uncle was a long-distance truck driver. And he had these tattoos on his arms. He had a Black Panther, and then he had a rose with a dagger through it. And to me, when I was listening to his stories, I realized that he got those on the highways. I remember thinking, these are symbols of adventure and of freedom. They were like travel stamps. And I was mesmerized by them.
I first started out of my mom's apartment, out of my bedroom. I like my beginnings because I wasn't motivated by money. I really had a love for drawing and painting. It was a hobby for me to create. You know, it made me feel good. And I was kind of like an introvert. And, you know, naturally, you know, tattoos are kind of an extroverted thing. So I guess that was my little way of getting out of my shell.
One of my first influences was this guy named Iwo Jima Eddie. He was an old, grouchy old dude, you know, the typical tattooist back then, and it was pretty cool, you know. We'd go in there, me and my homeboys, every, you know, Sunday we'd go watch a movie at the theater like everyone did, you know, matinee, and it was on the way. It was like 2 blocks away from the theater. We'd go in there and, you know, check out the naked girl pictures in there, you know, with the little dots covering up the key points, you know. And it was pretty cool, you know. Most of the time he'd chase us out, you know, but sometimes he'd just ignore us and we could watch him tattoo for a while. And, you know, these guys with these big battleships on their chest and these just all kinds of cool hula girls and all that traditional stuff, you know. As I got older, you know, I loved it, you know, but, you know, I didn't have no idea that I'd ever become a tattoo artist or even think I could, you know.
I started hanging out at tattoo shops, you know, and back then you didn't just walk in and say, hey, I want an apprenticeship, you know, with your little portfolio. You hung out and you scrubbed tubes and you did whatever it was you could do just to hang around there until one day they decided that, you know, you had enough artwork or you spent enough time scrubbing tubes. And this was back in their shop. The bathroom was about 4 by 4 and the sink was tiny, and you know, we'd stay there till 2, 3 in the morning scrubbing tubes because you didn't scrub just one art, you scrubbed the whole shops. So you use pipe cleaners and clean tubes all night, and finally they were like, hey, you want to learn? So I was like, yeah. So it's a lot more difficult than it is today.
We had to pay our dues, basically. Nowadays, these motherfuckers, man, their mama pays for their, because they can draw, they'll open a shop because their mama gave them money or their daddy or whatever in the fuck, and then, wow, there's 10,000 stores.
I see a lot of people out there that have absolutely no business being in the tattoo community. They have no idea. They have no artistic ability. They have no desire to be a great tattoo artist. They're not going to add anything to the culture of tattooing. They just want to make a quick dollar.
That's the biggest change is just how easy it is to get in the business. I mean, people were stingy with knowledge, and this is even in '89 when I started, you know. And like I said, luckily I became friends with some people, and I did that kind of had to do it through modesty. You just kind of hung out, you know, and would talk, and then people like, you know, Gil Monty, I mean, they just didn't, they were just abusive to, you know. So, and if you tried to roll in like, hey, I'm the man and look what I'm doing, you just got put down quick. So you just kind of hung out, and eventually these guys, you know, you became friends with them, but it took quite some time.
Well, the internet is fucking things up royally, you know, because it's just too much cross knowledge, information. You can find out anything.
There's a lot of debate about what's happening in tattooing right now. A lot of debate about people selling out, a lot of debate about corporations and people who aren't involved in tattooing getting involved in tattooing. You know, obviously media exposure is huge in all of this. And everybody says, and they have said since I began, this is the end of tattooing. And nobody's going to get tattoos anymore, and this is the end of our business. Oh my God, the end of days have come, you know, and then it just keeps exploding.
You know, obviously now it's more mainstream, it's glitzy, if someone has some new product to rub on your skin, it is a little sickening. You know, I've been in the business 25 years, and I'm actually starting to feel like a little bit of an old timer, even though, you know, I don't look it, I don't feel old. But I understand the romance of when tattooing was illegal in the city, when you had to know somebody, you know, to get a good tattoo and that sort of thing.
I think there's always going to be that sort of underbelly of people judging tattooing as not really socially acceptable. And there's part of that I like, because I think it tends to bond people in the industry closer together rather than having it as a highly commercial, viable profession.
The artwork is impressive nowadays. These fantastic artists, but one of the things that does bother me is a lot of people don't know the techniques and learn the old-time techniques that we learned from scratch to how to do things, and a lot of that has been lost with the new artist.
Wow, I know people, I swear to you, that have been tattooing less than a year that have apprentices and are teaching them how to tattoo. And it's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous. I would say probably 1 out of 100 people tattooing today should be tattooing, or I would consider an artist. You know, the rest of them are just chuckleheads and ass clowns that are friggin' out there trying to make $1 off it. You know,
80% of the kids out there don't know how to fucking make a needle. There's a lot of people that can't even tune a fucking machine. They buy a machine because their other one quit working. It's like, you know why? Because that screw fucking moved, you moron. You know, it's crazy.
but it's stuff like that. And you show these to new kids, man, they don't know. You know, they don't know where these frames came from, or where any part of the history of it. You know, and they don't give two shits. They just want to come in and tattoo and make quick buck, be rock stars, and you know, get a hot girlfriend. That's their whole intention for doing it, because it's cool, and we put it on TV, and you know, we've glorified it. But you know, I guess it is what it is. You can't go back and make that any different. You know, I wish you could.
The people that are behind the tattoo reality shows, you know, the people that are really, you know, again, the powers that be, those people don't have any tattoos. And it's all about ratings for them. And, you know, it's about, even though they may not mean to exploit it, they do exploit it. They believe that you need all this drama added into the show. And if there's not enough, you know, naturally, we'll inject some. We'll just make this to where, you know, these guys aren't getting along, or you get some real wacky clients, or, you know, some kind of, you know, bullshit like that, you know, to make it interesting. You know, and meanwhile, there's no disclaimer about, like, you know, hey, these tattoos are being performed by professionals. Do not try this at home. Do not purchase starter kits. Then, you know, then you'll see like something like Kat do a portrait in what appears to be 10 minutes of real time. No caption though that says actual tattoo time 4 or 5 hours, whatever it took. Actual healing time, you know, 4 weeks later. But it appears to the untutored viewer like that portrait was actually put on in 10 minutes. Could have taken 10 hours. And the tattoo heals up instantly. You know what I mean? And that's not the case. Now, everybody with a tattoo, all tattooers know better, but how many hundreds of thousands of people see that and they think that's the reality? Or they go to my shop or some other shop and they think, well, hell, Kat Von D did that portrait in 10 minutes. We mean it's going to take 4 hours. You know, you have to deal with this kind of crap. The fallout. We have to tell them, that's TV. That's not reality, but, you know, people think it is.
People, you know, scream about the tattoo television shows. I absolutely think they're good things. Because if you live in Podunk, Iowa, and you think you want to get a tattoo, it used to be that you would go into this tattoo shop. Now, you had no idea what you would find in there. Could be this big fat guy with Chinese food in his beard. It could be, you know, some sexual pervert who's, you know, going to take advantage of you. I mean, it's a biker. There's a big spectrum of tattoo shops and the way people work. I think the shows demonstrate that we're people, that you can come into a tattoo shop and be treated with respect, and that your project would be meaningful and applied with good art. And then people in Podunk, Iowa have a standard to look at. And if their local shop doesn't meet it, they can reject it. So I think that elevates our business rather than, you know, I don't like the drama and I don't like all the little, you know, made up little storylines and all of that nonsense, you know, but I think that it does give people a template for what they should expect when they walk into a tattoo shop, and I think that's a very good thing.
One of the things I do like about the commercialization of the tattoo shows and stuff, because, you know, I mean, they have a lot to hate about, but they have brought on a better customer. And a lot of my customers now have let me easily talk them into bigger work, something more satisfying as an artist. And they let us be more creative. They understand that that's part of the process.
I just found out today that there's a Barbie doll, Tattoo Barbie, that has come out. And this doll has all these little tattoos that you can put on and take off, and you know, she can get covered or not. And these little 4-year-old girls are going to be playing with this little Barbie doll and putting tattoos on her and taking them off. In our culture, all of these children are being primed at the age of 2, 3, 4 to think that tattoos are normal. And then on the media, of course, as you know, the casualization of clothing becomes more and more apparent. You know, we see sports stars, models, you know, musicians and so forth, all, you know, running around completely covered practically. So what I think has happened is just the whole casualization of our culture and all of these kids being primed has created a whole new, like, there's no stigma to tattooing.
I mean, it's a good thing they hurt, because if not, every pussy in the world would have one. You know what I mean? If you could just go in and just like have somebody draw on you and it's like it's permanent, well, I didn't feel, you know how many more people would have them? Virtually everyone would have them. You know? So it's a good thing they still hurt.
I've tattooed someone that his little girl died of SIDS, sudden infant death, and he held her teddy bear while I did the tattoo on him. And as I was doing the tattoo, he had tears running down his cheeks. And it was odd because I felt like I didn't have the right to be there, but I was the reason it was happening. So, you know, it weighs a little heavy on you sometimes, you know.
You know, I did a portrait on a woman of her son, and he looked so healthy in this photograph that she used, you know, and it turned out he had drowned, you know, which was, of course, very tragic. But yeah, you do get to, a lot of times you end up sharing that, you know, with this person you're working on, because I guess they obviously feel like, you know, you're a person they can talk to, and you know, they want to tell the story about this person they're getting a portrait of that's going to be a permanent memorial.
I had someone else that I did his son that had cancer, and his son had actually knew all these professional football and baseball players, and like he'd throw out the first ball, you know, at the Red Sox game, and this young man had written a book for other kids that suffered with cancer. And so this kid, I'm finding out his whole life story, you know, and he's gone, you know, and I mean, it's kind of heavy, you know. I've had tears rolling down my cheeks while I was working, you know what I mean? Because stuff like that gets you sometimes, you know. When you go to someone that's died, you're attending a funeral while you're doing the tattoo sometimes, and you got to be ready for it, you know. And I think sometimes it draws a lot out of you.
I divide tattoo history into two segments, pre and post 1970. Because in 1970, it just sort of, women's liberation was in, it was rolling. I was getting, God, I'd been on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine by then, Life magazine and all that stuff. So it just, the whole complexion of tattooing had changed and was changing. In the press was all enamored with all the women getting tattooed. I was in more panty lines than gynecologists, for Christ's sakes, back in that period. It was just, they all wanted a little butterfly or something. They all wanted it in a nice little hidden spot. I think secretly some of it was that when they went to the nude beach, they'd have a friend with them. Or they could rationalize, oh, they're looking at my tattoo, not my bush. You know, I don't know. Tattoos mean different things to different people.
It's a good industry. Don't fuck it up. You know, it can be really good to you, and it can really make you fuck you up. Just do it right, man, and it'll be good to you. Just do it right. And like I said, fucking respect the motherfuckers who started this shit. They're still alive. You know, just because they ain't tattooing don't mean they're dead. You know, these guys got a lot of knowledge, man, and listen to them.
We've got the old tattoo artists that was around and were unique characters, and I'm sure there's unique characters out there in the floor tattooing here today, but you can't see the forest for the trees. Too goddamn many. I mean, it's like, it's just, but the whole world is blown up, you know? And, well, the internet is fucking things up royally, you know? If there was a devil that invented Christianity, the news media, and the internet.